on camera.
Holy.
What a revelation!
Oh my gosh.
Oh. And there's so much delay on my actions.
Is that
It's
what
really
it looked like?
weird.
Wow.
Oh.
Really ugly in this.
Every time I like open my eyes, they look so weird. They look like normal, and then I look so reptilian.
You kind of look like an unedited creepy up pasta.
This is the original image of Jeff.
Oh, got a creepy pasta if I do.
I was in one of my lectures on one day. I was bored, so I just started.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Game, episode 3. I will be pitching in for Alice because she couldn't be here today. So today we will, as a group, be having a raw discussion around the pros and cons of ideation at this current moment in the early stages of production, nailing down and finalizing game structures, and essentially getting everyone's questions answered, which probably might not happen because we're not live. I'd like to start off with everyone first introducing themselves briefly for those who haven't watched before, and for new members who weren't here last week. I'll start first. I'm Paige. I am the assistant manager, lead animator / artist, and character designer. We'll go to the table.
Hey, I'm Dillon. I'm the lead narrator, game designer, and editor.
I'm Josh. I'm lead audio engineer. And not much else.
Hi, I'm Asher. I'm the lead programmer.
Hi, I'm Lucas, and I'm also the composer for this project. And we
So,
also have online live streaming with us. The camera's still. We have Jazz and Tysonn online with us at the moment as well, joining us.
I'm Tysonn. I'm assistant programmer and assistant editor.
I'm JC, or otherwise Jazz. And I'm lead UI designer for this.
Go back to me. A couple things to clarify. At this point, we are in production of a prototype for Spring Australia. We are still finalizing with Reza of what that means essentially. We are treating it as it's basically the full game with room for improvement at this current moment, with around 8 months from this time to get this done and presented. Let's see. Let's move to our next tour. To start off our discussion, I thought we could discuss the gender theory surrounding the game and how we tie this to our ideas at this present moment. Also, any ethical issues or acts we should be aware of when in production of the game. I think I will give this to the main writers of the whole thing here.
Yes, I'll take that one. So with the gender theory, it's been brought to our attention that not every country would potentially accept the game the way that we wanted to make it. So we're gonna tone it down a degree and make the gender coding a lot more subtle. If that makes sense. Yeah, it's still in there. It's still gonna be like all the same concept basically, but it just won't be so on the nose, like blatantly, flamboyantly in your face. And yeah, what that means also for like the character designs is like we're gonna like step away from heavy stereotyping as well, and maybe not so much objectification of characters, even though that's a core theme in the game, but we'll handle that in a part of the story.
Guess if I was to mention, yes, anything about design work and how that's going, I think while we're going along with design work at the moment, we can think about like details such as just like small hints that kind of indicate a certain like gender stereotype basically. Could probably just have very subtle like color palettes. But yeah, either way, it's probably gonna yeah, we'll try and figure out a way to make it look subtle. It says to sign over to Tysonn.
Tysonn. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me get Tysonn on. Okay, Tysonn.
So, for the past week, okay.
Yeah.
From this week's meeting, I went through full research into the type of organization instead of games I had interactions with, from gacha to loot boxes to the free to play with everything you can think of, from ads to you pay premium upfront and storefront, and then they may introduce battle passes, DLC, and so on. It's mainly just when this comes up in the discussion, we all have the information on hand and make a informed decision on what direction we want to take it. Because how monetization is handled can impact the final product. That's why I have with the games. Maybe introduce stigma or just a bad reputation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, definitely. We're yet to fully cement in what our game model is. But I think we have a rough idea that we want to do it ethically. We want to definitely be transparent with our customer base and pretty much like future-proof our reputations. Yeah, we will agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna agree to that.
Okay, so I'll give you a show. I've got a small slideshow. I've got the core game story down pat now, and I'm currently moving over to work on the actual characters and how they tie into the environments and the lore of the game and what every little thing is like logically. So a cool world, the story. The core question of the game is, what am I? So our MC, Cryptic Lark, it's all about this god character and basically him going through these revelations of, what is my place in this universe? Like, really, what am I doing? And what does it all mean? With the post-apostrophe narrative, but trying to push a theory that moves beyond human centeredness and embrace the blurs between biology, technology, and environment. So yeah, that's Cryptic Lark. This was a sketch drawn by Colin. He's 70,000 years old. He's an immortal god-like wizard. He's made of high-frequency materials, and he lives a solitary life in a spaceship called the Demeanor, where he travels through what he calls the projection. Lark is well aware that the projection is a pocket dimension that exists within a higher dimension. However, he is currently content with his position in the projection. It's a classic man in the hole, where starts off in a good place, ends up in the slums, and then through a bunch of interactions in the game, we'll put him out in a better place. And we established the opening sequence will establish who he is and where he's currently at. So we'll have basically he's flying through space in a spaceship. He unlocks the final boss, and that's basically where the game starts, where he falls into Crisis. The main game will be him coming out of Crisis, and the post game will be where we bring in the multiplayer aspects of really trying to maximize the enjoyment out of it. And I did a little sketch of what the Dementor looks like. This is my concept. Basically, it's a bubble spaceship. It needs to be a blend of plants and machinery and all kinds of cool sci-fi stuff in that. Yeah, that'd be something cool.
It's unique. I appreciate that.
I want to congratulate Valerie because I listened to
So Tentacle Baddie is our antagonist. Alice came up with the name. Oh wait. I came up with the name, Alice came up with the drawing, and I was like, this is a joke name, but I think it's gonna stick because I think it's just everyone seems to like it. I think it works.
It's an intriguing idea.
Intriguing idea there, you know.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, there's definitely other things to do with it, but we've had plenty of time for that.
So the inciting incident happens when Light unlocks this villain from a statue, and that's like a highly symbolic part of the storyline where it sees objects as worthlessness and creatures as being worthless. So it'd be part of the opening sequence to establish its like values. And yeah, when Tentacle Baddie is released at the start of the game, she kicks Lark out of his spaceship and crashes his spaceship. And this is him getting stripped of his agency. So yeah, it's a whole bunch of reasons behind it and why it's happening. So this was from the prototype game. This is where Lark falls into the world, and it'll look like a 2.5 3D version of this. And Lark will end up on the Endless, and he'll realize, oh, I've lost the ability to interact with everything. Yeah. I'm stuck for words today.
Okay. We just had a whole hour today.
I need another break. Sorry, I've cut this part out.
Recording, we always just pause and wander off for a while.
Yeah, we'll just do this again next week. Yeah, so because like Lark is a god, he basically realizes that he's so high above this lower dimension that he can't interact with it, and his god powers become like a curse to him, and he goes into like a real negative mind space, and the story of the game will be him overcoming this negative mind space and learning to reconnect with the world around him and make friends and create a community and network and get back into a positive place.
So the story is essentially like he sort of finds his way that thing around his mind again. He like sort of finds his place.
Yeah, so end of the game is you're battling to get back to his home. And when he gets there, he's going to decide, oh, actually, I don't want to be that, rather than move here with all my new creature friends.
Yeah. So it's kind of like he's rebuilding his life.
He's reinventing himself, going through this whole process. Like, you know, he was a very, like, he's a singularity when he starts off. He doesn't care about anything but himself. And he goes down and he has to live my own life pretty much all over again.
Yeah. I feel like that'd be a good allegory given the context of gender theory within the game. It's sort of like someone who's in a really sort of closed and what's the word? Rigorous kind of homogenous sort of environment. Whereas when they go out and they see that there's so much more, it's like a whole learning journey. I feel like that would sort of fit well into the context.
Yeah. Go on to the bosses. So the way he discovers these things about himself is through these bosses that he has to overcome. And each of the boss, they call the four horsemen of homogeny. And they basically represent some aspect of an issue that he's got to deal with. So we got mini boss one, the provider. represents the toxic expectations of stoicism and the oppressive dominance of the industrial age. Who was working on that character design?
Which one?
First boss.
I think that was going to be. I think Valerie was going to take that one. Yeah, either it was either the slicer or provider. So Valerie said they would be happy to take either the two of those.
So in the main game, the mini boss one would be the only mandatory boss you have to fight because it's like related to Lance being like a male character. All the rest of these will be optional things to do in the game to finally discover. So I would say mini boss one is main quest, but you could also, if you're doing, get up to these other bosses. So the gameplay loop, there's 4 main phases in the game, or actually 5 if you count the final boss sequence, but mainly 4. That's where you spend the majority of your time. Phase 1 is all about stealth and observation. Lark can't touch anything, and he can only really lure the homunculus who follow him around to get them to interact with things. Once you overcome those challenges, you move on to these more movement-based kind of things with strength and speed, driving and piloting. This is where he kind of finds value in having a companion, and he's like, oh, you know, I help it out, it helps me out kind of situation. Phase 3, the relationship starts to develop more. You start collecting the horseman's traits, so when you overcome these bosses, the rewards are these abilities that you get back from defeating these bosses. Phase 4 goes on to focusing on community. There'll be these optional 5 combat bosses. So everything in the light blue is combat based, and this is probably where I personally had find most fun in the game. There'll be, these bosses will each represent broader problems in society, which I'll get into a little bit later. I'll get into it now. So, as I mentioned, there'll be 5 extra bosses that are optional to the main game, but necessary to complete if you want to defeat Hellens. What do we call it?
I think I called strong.
Island Strong. I got everything.
Island Storm or something.
Yeah. So there's a secret boss as well, which is the raid boss for multiplayer. The adult bosses directly relate to the multiplayer part of the game. Each of these bosses have story arcs separate to the main game. They have a thematic concept based on real world issues like extortion, child labor, slavery, dictatorship, and capitalism/poverty. Their environments that they are existed in the world will also reflect these issues. Completing these story arcs rewards special super attack perks that can be called upon during the final battle with Von Hellens. That one. The attacks are delivered by a community society that you liberate by defeating the associated boss. The final twist of the secret boss is that to defeat him, Lark has to basically give up his god ability, lower his frequency, and he has to stop being a ghost and become one with the homunculus and become a mortal being again, if that makes sense. I've got basic loose concepts for each of these bosses and names. So number 1 was the extortionists, and this environment is in slums, city of vertical towers where the rich live, and the poor live in the below. Don't know how this one will come about yet. It probably will be like based on like Westerner kind of societies, probably. Then we got the child laborer. This one will be based on probably like 15 to 1800s kind of medieval style themes. This guy has the clockwork Clockwork Moor, a subterranean factory where the tunnels are too small for adults to enter, forcing children to maintain their massive gears that power one Eisenstrom's war machine. Yeah, so all the baby homunculus, the infant ones from the start of the game, would be seen within the game in this kind of like city. You have to say. Then we have the Slaver, who is basically based on human trafficking and modern slavery. The environment is a beautiful, sterile museum where living beings are frozen in stasis fields and preserved as art pieces. So a lot of objectification and a lot of touchy subjects, but we'll do it in a tasteful and fun way if we can, which we will.
Sorry to interrupt as well. It'd be pretty cool concept for like the slaver to be like sort of connected to the child laborer in a way. So like the slaver basically steals like the infant.
They have some kind of deal going on.
Yeah, the slaver gets to pick a certain amount of children from the foreman's like labor camps or something before they're
Yeah, it's like some exchange system.
Or like and I know it's kind of weird to compare it to this, but like sort of like how like subspecies of ants like completely evolved of stealing other ants or larvae in order to survive their colony and stuff like that. And like they've become so dependent on stealing other ants as larvae and to getting them to work with it that they've become it's completely dependent on them basically working for each other instead of them taking care of themselves. It would be a really funny concept.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
I don't guess I'd call that funny.
But like it's funny like if because they're enslaving tiny little monkeys.
What things?
Yeah.
We can bring up the slingshot photo.
Oh yeah, the slingshot. Do we have anything else?
I got two more. So I got a dictator farmer boss. He's a totalitarian, propaganda-based kind of thing. Got the idea from some other students' project called the Echo Chamber, which was like based on mass media and how it controls everything. But it's going to be a massive like concrete fortress. It's going to be satire for the media industry, basically, this one. And then we got the capitalist or the shareholder. Yeah. I think that was pretty straightforward. We're making fun of ourselves. So, yeah.
Touching on all the topics.
Yeah, I want to cover a lot of heavy themes. But
Well, they all do end up relating to each other once you're close enough, so I think it's worth covering.
yeah.
I think the main difficulty is from a narrative point of view trying to connect on all sort of thing, or like how do they benefit the big bad sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I'll just like my first like the way I approach it is making sure that everything complements each other in its own like aesthetic. Yeah. I would make it as big or as small as it needs to be. Keep it in
I think having all of the different bosses sort of like interacting and helping each other out a bit, part of one sort of greater mechanism. I think that works very well.
They're using the machine.
It was so they were all meant to like be servants of the final boss then Eisenstrong. I have to say that a few times to remember that. Eisenstrong. So yeah, like how Tentacle Baddie has her 4 horsemen. These are like Eisenstrong's 5 pillars. So I'll pass it over to John.
Oh, okay. I wasn't ready to speak soon. Cool. Last week I spoke about the sort of general philosophy of game audio. I think I'll go a little more practical this time and talk about the massive audio overhaul that I need to do. So the demo that we constructed was very rushed. We only had, what was it, like 4 weeks to put it together, which was not great. Generally putting together like sounds for a game or for a movie or any sort of multimedia project, it's one of the last things to go in, because you can look at everything else and figure out how those objects and characters would interact and like get a much more clear picture of what it would sound like and have a lot more control over it.
Oh, if you don't mind me.
Yeah.
So it's more of like just making sure you have like a visual to kind of perceive it all.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, the way I've been taught is to try and make the audio match the visuals rather than just guessing at it. And
That would make sense, because then it will probably fall better when it comes to the animation much later on.
yeah, so it can be a little bit tricky to plan out a timeline for these sorts of things, but I think the best approach for me would be to sort of plan out what will probably be needed based off of what we've got listed so far, and then start doing some like pretty broad recordings, building up a big library of resources, and then later down the line fine-tuning everything, synchronizing actions to sounds, and just making sure that it all lines up and sounds right. But yeah, right now it's pretty much just planning things out and gathering as many resources as I can get. That's pretty much all for me, I think. Yeah.
I do have the track as well.
Do you want to play that
Make a
again?
track?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have a listen to it. It sounds pretty rough at the moment. Like,
How long did you spend making it?
like 5 minutes, but it was like on a previously existing project as well that I didn't work on.
Well,
Dillon, can you? Okay. Just making sure that. Oh, is
I'm going to mute it on Teams so we don't get feedback.
just not check it OBS, maybe.
It is coming through.
Oh, it's come through.
Just drop it into the full file. You want to listen to it now?
Yeah, sure. So.
Love the music of our
TV and movies, right?
Okay, so we're gonna hand over to Tysonn.
Oh, wait, that's
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, it's not been too much done this week so far in terms of actual programming. It's more just been, as with the previous week or so, just kind of locking down the actual concept itself, so that me and Tysonn don't start working on mechanics that just won't work with how the game itself works. And there's been a lot of discussion just regarding like how we're going to strictly implement the 2.5D, whether we're having a full 3D environment, whether it's like a pseudo 3D by using 2D. And we've kind of locked down a full 3D environment where the world rolls around towards or away from the camera based on where the character's walking, just so that the character remains in the same position regardless of how the world is rotated, just because that's a lot easier in terms of managing stuff like keeping the assets looking the right way towards the camera, and with a 2D character as well, that angle is going to be a lot easier to, like, having them in a fixed position with the camera in relation to the camera is going to make things a lot easier for just making sure that they don't tilt towards the camera somehow and just get a lot shorter or warped or anything. And also just figuring out what abilities need to be worked on sooner, what abilities can be left until later, what abilities we actually need. Yeah, just working on an overall requirements and how to make the gameplay in such a way that it has pretty strong cohesion with the story and has the capacity for our designers and narrative designers, sound designers, to be able to make sound and animations and stuff that adheres and is cohesive with the mechanics of design. So yeah, that's mostly what I've been up to so far. Nothing particularly interesting, nothing to show, unfortunately. But yeah, that's been the week.
Well, is there anything else really? Well, we're meant to have a questions session right now, but we'll
Yes. I'd start with, we have a bit of more concept work to share over that Alice did for environment works. I'll do my best to pitch in for her. So I'll just do that real. Alright, so here right now I'm showing off one of Alice's environment concepts. I think here it's known as mossy mists. So I guess here we're having a look at this. We've got a bit of like a very cool vibe going on. This cool world. And that. It's like what you would suggest with mossy mists. We have a very misty like atmosphere going on with the textures and all that. Means a lot for I'm trying to read through this. That yeah. Mainly very, very lively, very green, and very. Let's just say it's a good environment.
It's a safe place. It's a
Yeah.
safe haven. There won't be any combat in this area. And yeah, it's a sanctuary. Pretty much.
We also have the whole setting with the time of day for each of these environments as well. Just discussed a little bit. Got a bit of like sunrise here for mistiness. I think that's a pretty good one to have for this one. Very waking up to nice bright dawn. What has that like all these bluish colors sort of blending a bit of like warmness. I can kind of see how that would go with that. And then we've got a second concept here as well. I believe these are what I read. Dunes. I guess it kind of looks. Is it like a deserty type of environment? Did Alice say anything much about it?
We didn't get too much into the actual
Yeah.
themes of it yet. Like this week will happen. Yeah.
But either way, yeah. So we have so there's a couple of environment arts that we've got in the works for now. Just slowly kind of building onto our world and to show and share what the endless world is may look like with all its different environments and everything. And the second thing I will bring up is among the list we have a couple designs here that were made by our member Adana. She came up with a few really nice and interesting looking designs for us. Lovely already. Well, definitely sticking to some themes of like how we have a coral theme going on and kind of sticking to like some aquatic like homunculi designs and all that. Oh, I say a lot with the designs for the homunculus is to kind of just go wild with them because it's probably going to be a very varied, variable species and all that. So it's pretty much just all out of creative ability and see what we get from that, basically. There's something about storyboarding. I think while we're on the way for that, it was to just finish off with confirming how the story was going to be before we could get touch on to that. But I'm pretty sure we could probably continue on to that for the next week or so now.
It'll be the next.
I think that's it with me.
So on the topic of the designs, should we be checking like that they're like legally distinct?
Like as in
Like that we're not gonna get any copyright issues as we go. Well, how did animators do that?
potentially, we're gonna like stick to a certain style. I think it's in between like having a bit of like an animal also this side or theme to it as well as like a mix of manga and comic book style kind of stuff, which is pretty common styles, I would assume. So I guess we'll do our best to kind of veer away from anything that looks very similar to like other very notable like games or whatnot. It's pretty much still a work in progress, I assume. It's very early into their concepts and stuff, and now that we have a few more artists to help out with the designing and all that, hopefully that the job for getting designs will be done a lot easier.
Alright, well, today, Ethan and I, our cameraman, thanks very much, we had the idea of plugging our other projects at the end of this, so we'll bring it in next week, so if you want to have a little shout out to any of the other things you've got going on as well, we'll use this as a platform to put our work out. Okay, well, thank you for joining us, and this has been Behind the Game, and we will see you next week at 1 p.m.
See ya. All right. Well done.
Behind the Game is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Alright, it was just one guy.